The final chapter of our book is Eagle Landmarks. We hope you enjoyed this sampling. One of the most memorable landmarks of Eagle is St. Teresa's steeple with its bell and clock. Parishioner and EHS member Cris Hughes will share this article from the January 2008 newsletter.
The people of Eagle have always been foresighted and energetic, it seems. Sometime after St. Teresa's church was built, the people wanted a town clock that would chime the hours. St. Teresa's Tower was the perfect place. The bell was made in St. Louis, Missouri by the J.G. Stuckstetter brothers. It has an 1869 date on it. Whether it was made that year or is a patent date is uncertain. The clock was installed on July 4th, 1908, at a cost of about $650. This year marks the 100th anniversary of that clock, a fact worth noting. The people of Eagle donated money for this cause, as did some very unlikely donors. Contributors included Pabst, Gettleman, Miller, Jung, Blast, and the Weber Brewing Company. Other donors were Brittingham and Hickson, the lumber company still in Eagle, the John Groff and Supreme Bottling Companies, dance proceeds of February 11, 1908, the basket social of March 4, 1908, the Eagle Manor Choir, and the Eagle Dramatic Club. In 1969, one of the cables holding a few hundred pounds of weights was frayed, and the village board decided to make the old clock electric. Prior to that, it wasn't weight-cabled, operated wind-up clock. Originally, it was wound by Carl Culp. Later, that job was taken over by Frank von Royden, and finally by Milt Miller, who continued to wind it until it was electrified. Every day, Milt would climb the stairs to the choir loft, and then the ladder to the clock room. Moving aside the dead pigeons and wading through whatever else there was, we can only imagine, to turn the crank and wind the clock. Once it was modernized, it needed only to be changed in spring and fall to account for daylight savings time. The clock has always chimed on the hour, half hour, and at noon and 6 p.m. for the Angelus. The Angelus has a different chime with time in between chimes for prayer. While there are still clocks that chime the Angelus throughout the United States, it is unlikely there are any in a town the size of Eagle. They are more apt to be found in private universities or larger cities.
It's easy to find our museum on Main Street. Just look for the large eagle perched in the flower garden in the front yard. EHS member Annie Jung will tell us the fascinating story of how our mascot landed on our property.
Eagle Historical's Eagle by Gina Sisler, EHS Newsletter, October 2013. The majestic eagle with wings perched on the grounds of the Eagle Historical Society Museum, just near the entrance on the patio garden. As natural as it seems to be there, it was not always so. The story of the eagle goes back more than 10 years. At that time, it was a mascot of sorts for the Norwest Bank at 61st and National in West Dallas. When the bank became Wells Fargo Bank, they no longer needed the eagle. They donated the fiberglass glass eagle to the city. Members of the commission and city leaders didn't quite know what to do with this massive eagle. West Dallas Historical Society member Jerry Lepler suggested that the village of Eagle might be just the place for it. There remained the dilemma of how to get it there. With a wingspan of 12 feet and a weight of 400 pounds, it was not an easy task. Diane and Tim Timling, members of the Eagle Historical Society, were eager to take advantage of this kind offer. They came with a 10-foot trailer, and with the help of others, they pushed and they pulled and twisted, but they were unable to get the regal bird onto the trailer. Undaunted, the Timlings returned with a larger trailer and were able to help bring the eagle to its natural resting place in Eagle. Approval was obtained before the eagle arrived, so everything was in order to place the eagle at its present site. The eagle was an impressive sight by day, but come sundown, it was a dark mess. Enter the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 494 in Milwaukee, through their community outreach program. Installation was performed by volunteer members at the IBEW 494 and the Eagle Historical Society, where electrical supplies were furnished by Lappin Electric of Waukesha at competitive prices. Now the eagle, in front of the Eagle Historical Society Museum, lights up the area in a manner befitting of this regal bird.
Remember meeting Burnett here, the first story shared by Pat this evening? She recalls a legendary character from Eagle's early days, Cot Hesse. Board member JoAnn Gilbert will share Burnett's memory of Cot and a poem that Cot wrote about Eagle School.
The Little Buggers Came to Visit by Cot Hesse, 1928. I want to say a word or two about our Eagle School. There's not a spot on this green earth that's kept so sweet and cool. Our teachers in the different grades are doing noble work, and not a pupil in the school would ever think to shirk. Alas, one day the teachers spied a tiny insect trying to hide among the curls of a sweet frat that kept a surplus in her hat. Oh boy, 'twas then an uproar rose, and everyone was on their toes. The teacher ordered every kid to part their wool and show their lid. So in they filed with sobbing breast to have the teacher make the test, to see if anything had made its home upon their little shaggy dome. And they haven't gone away. I worked at Eagle School for 30 years, and they were still there. This is a picture of Elzua Hesse. Everyone called her Cot. She was the village character. Everywhere she went, her pet crow was on her shoulder. She lived in a house on Main Street on the right side near Sherman's store. Her garden and my grandparents' back lots joined. Joe and Pauline Amon. They lived on First Street. I guess it was called Cot, and my grandma were real good friends. I remember going to her house and she would let me feed the crow. I'm sure any old person in Eagle would remember her. Cot was such a sweet and happy person. Everyone loved her and the crow. Yes, I worked at Eagle School for 30 years as the secretary, and yes, they're still buggers.
Our final selection tonight is the history of the church pictured on the cover of our book, the Eagle United Methodist Church. It will be read by its author and board member, Mike Rice.
This Eagle United Methodist Church was in the Historical Society newsletter October 2011. The Eagle United Methodist Church celebrated its 140th anniversary, August 13th and 14th in 2011. The Saturday evening service and dinner drew a large crowd, including past ministers and members of the church. The celebration continued Sunday with a 10 a.m. service, followed by an outdoor lunch served under a large tent. It could have been an image from 140 years earlier, except that tents and tables would have given way to boxes and picnic blankets. The first pioneers to arrive here in the mid-1830s and 1840s shared three common traits: great determination, strength of character, and a deep faith in God. Pioneering families with names like Hinckley, Thomas, Bigelow, Sherman, Wombold, and Pittman held church services in homes, schoolhouses, and barns, and were thrilled when a circuit rider preacher came to town. Lay preacher and pioneer John Hage and his wife arrived in Eagle in 1845. He bought a farm to support his family and preached in schoolhouses in and around Eagle. He bought the abandoned schoolhouse, which was located east of the Legion Post, and made it into a church. Run down and in need of major repairs, the congregation eventually needed a new building. So in 1870, Thomas Pittman donated the land where the church is currently located, and construction was finished a year later in 1871. The building is patterned after a simple Gothic architectural style that was popular in the 17th and 18th centuries. Unlike the large grandiose cathedrals of medieval Europe, with towering arches and spires that reached hundreds of feet into the air, many Protestants, including the Eagle congregation, chose a simpler design that reflected the purity of their faith. The pointed arch ceiling gives height and open space and is meant to allow the prayers of the faithful to reach the heavens, but also provides great acoustical support. The tall, narrow windows are built to let light in, but are also meant to act as beacons of light for those in the darkness outside. Eagle was a farming community in the 19th century, and so a group of humble farmers were determined to build a church to honor a carpenter. The sanctuary hasn't changed much since that date, except for modernization of lighting, heating, and replacement of straight-back pews with more comfortable padded ones. In 1914, the church basement was added and has offered a place for wonderful food and fellowship ever since. For the past 140 years, the church has been a source of joy for many and provided comfort for those in need. The congregation continues its tradition of reaching out to the community to sow the seeds of hope and forgiveness. Stop in and see a piece of Eagle history. Thank you.
Thank you very much for attending our program tonight. If you're interested in learning more about Eagle, past and present, we are offering In Their Own Words for $15 on the side table. Please enjoy some refreshments and conversation with one another. I leave you with this poem by Catherine Wedham, written in the year I was born. The Priscilla poem. In retrospect, yes, my dears, we're growing old. We have lived a good full life, some of it more and some of it less, but mainly we've done all right. None of us have set the world on fire with grand and glorious deeds. We just did our best in everyday life, and mainly it came out all right. Fortune and fame seem to pass us by, but fame is a fleeting thing. Fortune, we did our best with what we had, and mainly we did all right. We've had some joy and have shed some tears to live to the full our day. We've seen much change, some good, some bad, as time sped on its way. Now we stop to rest and to meditate, count blessings that are good, and pray that God, who knows each heart, thinks we've done the best we could. So here's a toast for us all to say in friendship's finest way. Here's to you, and here's to me, and to Eagle, Wisconsin, USA.